Hello, I'm Loopsy, and I have been seeing a bunch of promo for the new Frankenstein film. To be more specific, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, which is hitting Netflix really soon, or it's already here. Editor, check that. I think it's an understatement to say that it's got everyone excited, including me, because it's Guillermo del Toro. But I must say, all this promo has got me thinking about a Frankenstein that I'd highly anticipated many years ago, when I was but a teen. No, it wasn't I, Frankenstein. We can fuck off with that. I don't care what it did for the Victorian film industry. I don't care for it one bit. It looks like ass. Because literally, what is that? No, it was the one that came out the next year. I'm in fact talking about Victor Frankenstein this video. In case you haven't noticed yet, I am a huge Daniel Radcliffe fan, which is highly unusual considering that the fandom goes through constant droughts of content. But when we do get that content, it's so fucking good. He makes appearances randomly in the media, and he's kind of like a cryptid to us, so when he does make those appearances, it's a very big time for us. I haven't been in the fandom for many, many years now, so I get the pleasure of seeing Mr. Daniel Radcliffe in very weird films here and there, just randomly, and I love it. I love it. It's fun. And that's why I like it, because he's choosing like the greatest projects of all time. So way back when, a photo came out of him wearing long ass extensions and wearing a period outfit. I think like that photo may have been the start of the holy trinity of weird photos of Daniel Radcliffe. But anyway, we saw that photo. The information that came along with it was that he would be playing Igor. And like we're talking Igor, the hunchback with bulging eyes that we commonly see. Are you sure? Why is he hot? He would be acting alongside the greats like James McAvoy of X-Men fame, of Narnia fame, Split, and then Andrew Scott from Sherlock, as you may know him as Moriarty. And what's even cooler, that one of Sherlock's directors, Paul McGuigan, was directing this film. This was shaping up to be a really exciting film. Multi-fandom. And Max Landis was doing the script. I don't want to talk about him though. Just look him up and you'll see why. But anyways, this film was set to be a blockbuster, a monster fest, and 20th Century Fox was behind it. It was serious. So why didn't we hear of it? Why did it flop so hard? It had the multi-fandom cast and terrific acting and brilliant set design and the gothic vibes. Just what the fuck happened? And why am I here talking about it today? And why am I one of the only ones who knows about this film? To start off with, I'll just give you a timeline of events as best as I can remember, back to when I was but a teen on Twitter. The announcement was made in 2011 that there would be another Frankenstein film. I guess you could say that after all those remakes that have happened in the last 50 years or so, it's a meh from everyone, I guess. But then the cast was confirmed, which really got us excited. Well, especially me. It got me excited because I'm a fan of all these actors. And this was a great time for Tumblr users, may I add. And then we had the trailer and that Comic-Con conference. Fun fact about that conference, I almost went to that. Yeah, no, so that year, my dad was going to take my sister and I to the US, and we wanted to go to San Francisco, and I'm like, holy shit, I could go to Comic-Con. And that year's Comic-Con happened to be the one with the infamous Victor Frankenstein presentation. So I was really excited until Dad decided to switch jobs and we couldn't go anymore, so. I don't hate my dad. I'm not saying I hate my dad. He had to change jobs for a reason, but like, still sad about it. It's just another case of an Australian fan missing out on everything. There were promos. Well, hardly any. I'm from Australia. I barely saw anything. I barely saw any promos for this film, and I wasn't really sure why. But there was like not many promos, and to the point where like a guerrilla crew of like people from the Sherlock fandoms and the Harry Potter fandoms like coming together and like making their own promos for this film. And they did a great job. I'll explain that in a little bit. To continue on. The film landed in cinemas in the US on Thanksgiving of 2015. It made $620,000 on opening day. That was the lowest opening for a film released in over 2,500 theaters in North America. So, I guess it didn't do very well. Just 6 million shy of making all the money back that they spent on this film. No Australian release, so whatever little promotion I did see in Australia didn't happen. It was all for nothing in the end. I didn't get to see it. It wasn't showing in any cinemas around me, not even the independent cinema, so that's bad. But my international friends got to see it and they loved it, and I found it online because I am a filthy pirate. What's the point of me telling you about this if I don't tell you what happens in the film? Shall I give you the plot? I think I shall. Let's get into the plot.
You know this story.
Well, I guess I do. Let's end the movie there. After all, this may be the 30th Frankenstein remake. No, let's see what Max Landis, son of John Landis, may I add, can do with this infamous story by Mary Shelley. We begin with an opening narration from none other than Frankenstein's sidekick, Igor. Well, soon to be sidekick. They haven't met yet. Igor's story starts off in the circus. His job, he's not getting paid, is a circus clown. More specifically, the clown that gets mistreated for laughs by everyone else at the circus. We notice that he isn't just a poor soul, but a poor soul who has a genius intellect and an eye for medical science and anatomy. For this reason, he is the circus company's doctor. He has a bunch of medical textbooks that he loves to study, but no real opportunity to use his studies for something bigger. That is until a weirdo named Victor Frankenstein shows up to the circus. But he's not there to watch. He's here to commit a crime. On this night, we see Lorelei, a trapeze artist, fall from a great height during her show and break her collarbone as well as dislocating her shoulder. Igor rushes to her aid as well as Victor, who saw the whole thing. Victor turns out to be really good at medical science. But to Victor's surprise, the hunchback circus clown also knows his stuff. They both start nerding out, both managing to diagnose Lorelei's major injury, which is stopping her from breathing. Luckily, the pair manage to work together to perform what is called a dry surgery, and with a pocket watch, where Igor slams the broken collarbone back in place. At the same time, Victor relocates her shoulder, causing her to jolt back to life. The surgery is a success. They realize that working together means that they can achieve so much more. Victor tells Igor his talent is being wasted at the circus. Unfortunately, not much can be done here, because after that whole fiasco, Igor has his medical books set on fire, and he gets thrown into a cage. Why? Because his rat-looking roommate sells him out for simply having dreams of being a medical physician, which in turn means leaving the circus. And the ringmaster doesn't want that. But Victor wants Igor so bad, as a science partner, of course, and breaks him out of there. There's a whole dramatic slow-motion chase that ensues, which I honestly find really cool. Victor even does a cool little magic trick that gets Ratface stabbed. Anyway, they both make it out alive. They go to Victor's house, and not even a minute into being there, Victor slams Igor into a pillar and starts draining what appears to be an abscess in his back in the grossest way possible. Victor goes on to explain that Igor is in fact not a hunchback and that he's just had an abscess that hasn't been treated for 18 years. Once that's all done and dusted, Victor goes back for round 2, instead breaking all of the bones in Igor's back to reset them in an attempt to make him stand up straight, because obviously he's been hunched over for all these years. After all that, he tells Igor to go to take a shower and leaves him as he rushes downstairs for the night. Really? You didn't bother to give him a towel after you did all that? Igor's all clean and good looking now. We find that Victor is a very busy guy. He's got school today, but he doesn't leave until he very quickly gives Igor some house rules, including giving him the name Igor. I forgot to mention that before they met, Igor didn't have a name. No one gave him a name. So Victor tells him to go by Igor Straussman, which is the name of Victor's old housemate who may or may not be around. Victor is very shifty about this, but oh look, here's a library that all now belongs to Igor. Wow. Anyways, Igor leaves the house to go see Lorelei, who's in this gross ass hospital. The 1800s, what do you expect? She's currently fighting for her life with a bunch of other sick ladies in the hall. She's got a really bad fever. Igor attempts to speak with the group of doctors, but they leave. So he calls on this random servant in the hospital and then pays her to treat Lorelei's fever and infection. After Lorelei got better, she ended up getting a benefactor somehow as a cabaret performer for a very rich man, which we will come back to. Igor is on the street smiling away, enjoying life until he finds his and Victor's faces on a bunch of wanted posters. Oh shit, I didn't even tell you about the aftermath of the circus. This here is Turpin. He's the cop that's been chasing Victor down before the movie started. You know how I said that Victor was at the circus to commit a crime? Well, he's been known to do that a lot. So he's been collecting animal parts. While Turpin had been investigating the circus, he found a bag with a lion's paw in it. I don't know how Victor got a lion's paw, since we didn't see a dead lion anywhere in the circus. But anyways, Turpin is informed that Victor had an accomplice with him, Igor, who coincidentally had a portrait on his wall that he drew himself, which is now on the wanted posters. Uh-oh. Victor comes home to Igor showing him the poster, and he's rightfully panicking. Victor quells his fears by telling him that they are looking for a sad little circus hunchback. Victor is not at all worried about being found out about his own crimes because the cops still have no proof leading to him, even though he is still a strong suspect that Turpin is obsessed with. Like, he's really obsessed with Victor. But all we know about Turpin is that he is a cop and a man of God. Moving on, Victor decides to try and cheer up Igor by showing him something he's been working on, which is only a small piece of a larger project that he is yet to explain. He shows him a pair of eyes that he brought back to life. And Igor thinks it's really cool and all, but then he nerds out and remarks that Victor's work on the optic nerves are a mess. And Victor gets so wet about this, he's like, just about kisses the guy, he's so excited. So Victor decides that Igor is going to be involved with his next project, which of course he's giving limited information on, but Igor doesn't care in the end, because he's finally doing cool medical shit on actual body parts and getting them functioning again. A few days later, Victor invites Igor to a ball, ends up reuniting with a very healthy Lorelei, who's all dressed up to the nines. That benefactor is really looking after her. Victor catches up with them, very drunk, and decides to invite Lorelei to drink with them. And this is where Victor mansplains science to her, as he did with the last table guests. He tells her about how he wants to create life from death. He shows her this random magic trick with a playing card to somehow convince her that he's cool and not just some weirdo with anger issues. After the party, Victor decides to show Igor the big school project that he's been working on, which happens to be the first time he creates life. And it's in the form of a raggedy dead chimpanzee named Gordon. And the son of a bitch did it. He got him breathing, which is an amazing first step. And at this moment forward, Igor is officially made Victor's partner. Science partner. And they are hard launching at the school presentation tomorrow. The next day comes around and they cart Gordon into the medical school theater, where a whopping 8 people show up. Oh look, it's Lorelei. Victor, of course, isn't happy that Igor invited her to their hard launch. We meet some evil Draco-looking guy named Finnegan, and he's a prick.
Come on. I have a coach waiting.
After a long time listening to Victor suffering from the woes of public speaking, they are finally ready to show people life. Except it's not working, and now they got a fly infestation in the theater. So they try and try again, hitting it with more power in true Frankenstein fashion, until Gordon opens his eyes and starts to get up. He becomes volatile, a far cry from what they expected, and after a big chase around the school, Victor has to end its short and twisted existence. Victor and Igor have their first long argument, as Igor doesn't want to make any more of whatever the hell that was. Of course, Victor wants to try again, but alas, they got no more funding. That is until Mr. Finnegan Moneybags comes in with a change of tune. He is now extremely interested in another experiment, another one like Gordon. Victor says he can do him one better. He can make a man. Igor wants no part in this, but Victor uses Igor's sob story as leverage against him to convince him. I'm sorry, but Finnegan cannot be more obvious. He wants that man in more ways than one. Anyways, Turpin comes around the next day. Uh-oh. He knows what happened at the school, and he's finally got a good enough reason to question Victor in his own home. He also immediately clocks that Igor is the hunchback from the circus. Shit. Turpin asks Victor for evidence of all his experiments and that he'll be warranted a search of his home if he doesn't get them. During the conversation, they get talking about Turpin's Christianity, which baffles Victor because he is clearly not a man of God himself. He starts questioning Turpin on why he's so interested in Victor's sinful medical bidding. It doesn't take him long to deduce that Turpin is specifically wanting to take him down because both their beliefs are at war. After Turpin leaves, it's time for Igor to meet the parents. Victor's father shows up unannounced to berate his son over embarrassing his family name over his dumb experiments. He also tells him that Victor's been expelled. His father leaves, and Igor tries to talk to a very broken Victor Frankenstein. They talk about the idea of making a man. Could it really work? All this excitement gets them drinking that hard liquor and getting right to work on planning out their man's anatomy, giving him 2 sets of lungs and 2 hearts. One night, Igor asks Victor for permission to go out on a date with Lorelei for the night. Victor, holding his tongue, tells him to have at it. How nice of them to open their relationship. Anyways, Igor has a dance with Lorelei, has some sex, and then he comes back to the house the next day and oh dear, there's a battering ram. Turpin finally got the search warrant, it seems, and Victor isn't answering the door to the Scotland Yard, so Igor sneaks around the back to get in and find Victor, who's scrambling to pack everything up to have Finnegan's men pick it all up and take it to the Finnegan estate to finish his work there. He's also overloading the conductors on purpose to basically blow up the lab because he doesn't want the police to take his machines. Igor goes to open a trapdoor for them to escape, but Victor's old housemate decides to come out of the closet, and Igor is now face to face with Igor Strausman, who's admittedly a bit cold towards him. He's also missing his eyes. Interesting. Igor starts angrily yelling at Victor for lying to him about his housemate and doesn't know he was dead and that he took his eyes. Like, friends don't do that. Victor mentions that the OG Igor died from an overdose, but that really doesn't make things any better in this situation. But right on cue, Turpin comes in and interrupts them. Impeccable timing, as always. At this moment, Victor and Turpin talk about death. We learn that Turpin's wife had passed away, which is why he fears death, and that it's an abyss in which no one can return. Victor asks if he'd rather bring her back if he could do it. Turpin exclaims that she's alive and well in his heart, and he will join her in the afterlife. Not a good enough answer for Victor, as he tells Turpin he trusts in a fiction. It's not long before they start exchanging fists, and Turpin's arm gets caught in a machine, while Victor and Igor make their escape. The pair gets to Finnegan's estate, and Igor decides he's done with Victor and his mess. Victor can't get through to him and decides to go and prepare for his Prometheus project. Finnegan has a little talk with Igor about how it's a shame that they broke up, but now Igor knows too much about the project, and that could put them all at risk. Finnegan also admits that he'll want to steal the project in the end, and so getting rid of Igor is a faster way to do that. So he throws Igor into the sea to die. I don't know how he did it, but Igor survives, and Lorelei nurses him back to health. When I tell you Igor is a cockroach. Meanwhile, Turpin is trying and failing to convince the chief of police that they need to keep finding Victor Frankenstein, as he's about to commit the biggest sin the Christian world has ever seen. The chief is a little scared of him, so he tells Turpin that he's off the case and needs to rest because he looks like complete shit and sounds like a conspiracy nut, talking about monsters and conspiracies involving one of London's richest families. Back to Igor. He's on the mend and pulls out Victor's pocket watch that fell on the ground in the scuffle. He remembers him telling him about the watch, which was his brother Henry's. He died while he and Victor decided to play out in the snow as kids. Victor's idea, by the way, which is why he's so heartbroken. This will come back later, but which is why I'm telling you right now. Now, on to the final act. I'm going to race through this one. Igor decides he needs to get to Victor and stop him from making Prometheus. So Lorelei helps him by distracting Finnegan's men, which works, but unfortunately Turpin decides to show up and do the Lord's work. Igor makes it to this castle where there are like 50 people working with Victor to create life. This time, on a much larger scale than before. Igor pulls Victor away to talk to him, first of all, giving him this legendary line of dialogue.
No one will remember Frankenstein the man, only the monster!
And then he starts mentioning Henry, his brother, and telling him that he doesn't have to now be responsible for bringing people back to life to make up for indirectly killing his brother. Victor laughs and tells him that's not quite why he's doing all this. He tells him that it's because his brother got killed, and Victor indirectly ended his life, which is the reason why he must create life now. He needs to redress the balance. This scene gives me goosebumps. I love James McAvoy's performance in this, and in the whole film actually too. Anyways, all this talking doesn't work, and Victor goes and brings life to his new project, Prometheus. Unfortunately, the lightning storm had overloaded the machines. Finnegan ends up biting the dust. Turpin shows up to rub the failure in Victor's face, until... where the fuck is Prometheus? So the lightning charge worked brilliantly, and Prometheus is walking around all brute-like. He's alive.
No Satan! No God! Only humanity! Only me!
Victor goes to meet him with excitement. The man starts crying from joy, until those tears turn to anguish. He realizes whilst looking into the dead eyes of his creation that Prometheus is merely a pile of flesh, reanimated, a monster, rather than a man.
You are not live!
Victor starts screaming at him, hitting him until suddenly Turpin shoots at the beast, causing the monster to tweak out. So to cut the whole scene very short, the monster sends Turpin into a glorified bug zapper, killing him instantly. and Victor and Igor spend a long time trying to kill their creation. They end up impaling him with a lightning rod and seem to kill it until Victor says,
Two hearts!
so they're gonna drive yet another rod into his second heart, finally killing him. Igor wakes up from his concussion, and Lorelei just randomly shows up after being arrested, I guess. She gives him a letter, and it's from Victor, who is nowhere to be seen. In the letter, Victor says that he's gone away to do more research for the next time he makes another man, because he clearly never learns. He even says that he will eventually invite Igor to rejoin him when he figures it out. And if I were Igor, I'd say,
Hard pass!
honestly, my verdict on the film is that I thought it was really cool. I thought it was fun. I thought it was all kinds of fun. Super gay, I think, but all fun. Every man in this film had a thing for getting very close to each other. I assume to get their points across. The one makeout scene between a straight couple was the least intimate scene in the film. Again, the acting was magnificent. I loved James McAvoy's performance in this. He's always good. He's always been good. I also loved Daniel Radcliffe's performance as well. I loved the pair of them. I loved how they worked together. Like, they just sold it for me. They just really sold it for me. I think more films with them two together in some form or way. There was also a lot of crying. Not from me, from the people in the film. I don't know why I put that in my notes. But James McAvoy's performance, he is a beast. Like, that's my Frankenstein right there. I loved him as Frankenstein. I think it was made for him. This film is a great look into the relationship between Frankenstein and Igor. The whole film was told through the perspective of Igor. He starts likening himself to one of Victor's creations, which is pretty interesting. Victor technically gave him life, essentially. Like, he spent 19 years in the circus with a hunchback, and Victor just came along and transformed his life. Unfortunately, Victor uses all that as leverage to get Igor to do what Victor wants. And whenever Igor decides to have opinions and free will, Victor doesn't like that, so it's clear that Victor is not a very good friend to Igor. They got a really toxic relationship going on, but I'm pretty sure we know that from many years of remakes. And also, it doesn't really matter in the end because Igor decides that Victor is still his best friend. He feels like he owes him, so he goes and tries to save Victor from himself and making a big mistake in the end. Even after Victor casts him away to go make life with Finnegan. Take that how you want to. As for Frankenstein's monster, I feel like it could have looked better. It just looks like a guy in a rubber suit. It probably was in their defense. I just liked the look of the chimpanzee better, actually. Like, I really liked how the chimpanzee looked. The love interest plot was dull. I mean the one between Igor and Lorelei and not Victor and Igor. I don't really have much to say about the Igor and Lorelei plot line. It was just really meh. It was really meh. I think Victor and Igor's relationship very much outshone that plotline entirely. I apologize, I rarely make criticisms on movies on this channel. I'm not a critic. I don't like being mean to anyone. The film overall was like really good. I just didn't think it stands very strong, especially as a Frankenstein remake. It doesn't really stand very strong. It doesn't have a very tough foundation, you know? And I will go further into my suspicions as to why it may have flopped at the box office in a second. But to continue with the negatives of this film. So let's talk about Turpin, who was played by the great Andrew Scott. I think his acting was great in this.
May God forgive you, Frankenstein! May God forgive you!
His plot development was an interesting choice. I could definitely see the vision here. He's a top cop who is also a god-worshipping man who has been chasing Victor down for God knows how long because Victor's been stealing body parts all over London. This case is obviously quite personal to Turpin as the experiments get bigger and bigger, and it gets to a point where he starts to lose his sanity over it and his life. We get to see two sides of the coin when it comes to both Turpin and Victor, which is really nice. Both have lost their loved ones, but they see life and death very different to each other. Victor wants to go against the forces of nature to bring loved ones back from the dead, while Turpin is actually at peace with the idea of death being permanent. And this is where things get a little muddy. Why am I siding with a cop? and a Christian. Victor's reasoning for bringing people back to life is constantly lost on the audience. Like, he's not winning us over, and I feel like Frankenstein is kind of supposed to win us over, at least a little bit. He keeps losing the argument on why the dead should be brought back. And I think it's because he keeps failing his experiments. Like, I have no faith in him. I mean, I had little faith in him when he showed the pair of eyes coming to life, but after that, after the chimpanzee thing, I lost so much faith in him. And then it came to the Prometheus scene where he did bring him back to life, which was really cool. But in the end, it was a reanimated chunk of flesh. So, like, the man had no soul. Like, he wouldn't speak, didn't have a mind of its own. Like, all it was just a giant soldier. It didn't look like he had any room to, like, make thoughts and opinions and emotions, you know, like. So, but then at the very end, he wants to make another one because he thinks he knows where he went wrong. Bitch, you're a broken record. You basically did the same thing again, but larger. If I were Igor, I would burn that letter and start a new life with Lorelei. Go into pharmaceuticals or some shit. Anyways, I'm done now. I'm done with the story. Let's talk about the other reasons why it bombed.
Have mercy!
So one of the biggest and glaring reasons why I think the film didn't do as well is because it's a remake. And what's worse is that it's a remake of one of the biggest, most remade stories in history. Like, we're beating a dead horse. The horse is decomposed. It's flesh and bones. It's done. It's done. Stop. It's like they want to reanimate it. So my personal theory is that Victor Frankenstein came out a year after I, Frankenstein. And the last thing anybody wanted at the time was another Frankenstein film. But again, that's just my opinion. I have serious beef with that film and I don't want to talk about it. Why was Frankenstein's monster hot? Why did he look like that? But I could say the same thing for Igor and Victor Frankenstein. A lot of people were curious as to why Igor, one of the most recognizable ugly sidekicks, is hot and not looking like a crumpled piece of tissue. And here's the bigger controversy. His hunch was not really a hunch at all. So we just erased a whole bunch of identity from Igor. His famous humpback was only present in the first 15 minutes of the film, you know, until Victor kindly and gently took it away, and removing the pus of what seems to be an untreated abscess on his back. And then he breaks all his bones, resets his posture, and then tells Igor to go take a shower for the first time in his life. But you know, the more that I think about it, the more that kind of makes sense. Victor, the greatest surgeon ever lived, fictional surgeon, by the way, I'm not real, a medical marvel that creates life from spare parts. You're telling me he could have just done surgery on Igor and his back and just fix his back problems, or at least make them a hell of a lot better than they were originally. All these remakes have gone by and nobody thought to fix Igor's back. I mean, I understand that in this remake, Igor only had an untreated abscess in his back, so it would be a lot easier to fix than an actual hunch. I'm not a certified surgeon, so I'm not going to continue talking about that. Now, what I really must talk about is the promotional material for Victor Frankenstein. It was abysmal. There was not a lot coming from 20th Century Fox, and that's a big company. I mean, their Twitter seemed to have a lot of promo for it. I personally didn't see many ads here in Australia. I think I saw maybe one. I don't know if it was just a YouTube ad or not. I don't know, but it was like only one, and I was like really excited. And then it didn't even show in Australia. So maybe it was because there were other notable films coming out that year. Or maybe they just had so little faith in another Frankenstein movie that they just let it fly under the radar and only promoted it in North America. Although I will say there was a lot of press tour stuff. They got James and Daniel like working overtime for this stuff. A whole bunch of videos of them promoting this film. And like really good ones too. Like you got the MTV one where they're at a bar and they're doing a trivia night. I do like that one. But yeah, like a lot of them. It was being well received by their fans. But maybe only their fans, and not so much the rest of the general public. I'm not a marketing major, so just take that all with a grain of salt. But I do remember when I was a fandom girly and I was on Twitter and Tumblr, I had internet friends that were working their asses off on promoting this film because there wasn't a whole lot of it coming from Fox. They did a very good job and I have to applaud them. Fandoms really are amazing at promotion, and I say give them marketing jobs. I think I've said all that I had to say. Go give Victor Frankenstein a watch. You might even like it. I liked it. I had fun. I'm sorry that it wasn't your usual video essay. I just wanted to have a bit of fun, try and get myself back into making videos since I've been on hiatus for a while. You can learn more about that in my last video. It's just to get me to ease back into proper analysis videos. And I will. I'm really excited to be back. As always, like and subscribe if you'd like to. Don't forget to do that. As always, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. See you later.